I look fine. I'm chubby and I have all my hair. I don't look like a quote unquote cancer patient. I look like myself, just with a little extra weight on me. And so that's been really hard too, is that people think you're fine every day and you just come in and you're just struggling to just make it through the day. And people don't understand that. My name is Janelle. I am 42 years old. I live in North Carolina, and I was originally diagnosed as stage 3 adrenocortical carcinoma. And now I am stage 4 adrenocortical carcinoma. It all started back in 2013. I started noticing an uptick in drinking of water. So it went from a normal amount of water to an abnormal amount. And when I say abnormal, I mean up to 300 ounces of water a day. And so I finally went to my primary care physician and talked to him about what was going on. And he said, well, that sounds like diabetes. And you had a grandfather who was diabetic. So he tested me for diabetes and my blood sugar was completely normal. Everything was fine. He sent me to my first endocrinologist who ran a slew of tests on me. And she came back and said that it was all in my head and I was faking it and that there was nothing wrong with me and I was just attention seeking. So I told my primary care doctor that, and he's like, no, unacceptable. So he sent me to a second endocrinologist where she ran the exact same test, ran even more tests, including a 24-hour urine cortisol test, tested my adrenocortical tropic hormone, which is also known as ACTH, my cortisol, ran all my vitamins, everything like that. And then just kind of went, eh. She noticed my cortisol was high and my ACTH was non-existent and just kind of went, whatever. So I sent that back to my primary care doctor again, and he sent me to a third endocrinologist in a different hospital system. And it took me 6 weeks to get this appointment. And he walks in and he looks at my chart and he goes, get off your birth control, see you in 8 weeks, and walks out the door. And that was it. So I gave up. I just thought, okay, this is my life now. I'm going to constantly have to wake up all night, drink all night, never get a good night's sleep. This is just what it's going to be. And my primary care doctor was the one who stepped up and said, I'm just going to put you on metformin. It's a pre-diabetes medicine. You kind of show the signs of diabetes, but you're not, you don't have the high blood sugar or anything like that. So we're going to give it a shot and see if that helps. And it did help. And that was back in 2015. It wasn't until 2021 when I woke up one morning with a really bad pain in my left hip area. And as I was getting ready for work, the pain got worse and worse. And so I decided to go to urgent care. I go to the urgent care, which is about 5 miles down the road from my house. And by the time I get there, I'm in so much pain, I'm shaking. And so they tell me, so they scan my ID and my insurance card. And by the time they scan that in, they're like, come on back, come back right now, come back right now. So they take me back and they said, oh, well, we don't have any scanning equipment, so we're going to have to send you to the ER, which is about 20 miles down the road. And I knew I couldn't drive myself because I could barely make it the 5 miles to the urgent care. So I called my husband, who sped down from work, scooped me up, threw me in the back of his truck, and off we went to the emergency room. And this was obviously during, part of COVID, so they weren't allowing visitors in there. So it was just me in the emergency room by myself, and he had to wait out in the parking lot. They did a CT scan, they ran some blood work, and they found that I had a kidney stone, which is what was causing the pain, but also that there was a 4 centimeter mass on my adrenal gland. So I think whatever every single day for that kidney stone, because that kidney stone saved my life. I stayed home from work because I didn't want to pass a kidney stone at work because I've heard they're very painful. And so on Friday, I was working from home and I was having my lunch and I get a call from a strange number. And I'm one of those people who never picks up the phone for a random number, but something inside me said, pick it up. So I picked up the phone and it was my primary care doctor. And I'm like, hey, you're not calling from the office number. What's going on? And he's like, well, I just wanted to talk to you about what we saw on your CT scan. And I wanted to be the one to talk to you about it. And I was like, oh, okay, because we have that rapport. And he tells me, myself and the head of endocrinology are about 99% sure that it is cancer. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. So I'm frantically looking for something to write things down on because I have all these questions going through my mind immediately. So I grab a pad of paper and I grab a pen and I'm like, what do you think this cancer is? And he's like, well, we think it's called adrenocortical carcinoma. And I said, well, do you know like what stage it is? Do you know anything about it? He's like, unfortunately, the only way they know how to stage your cancer is to remove it. And there's going to be a lot of tests leading up to this. So on October 6th of 2021, I went in for surgery and I had my left kidney and my left adrenal gland removed because when they went in to get the adrenal gland, they noticed that the tumor had spread into my kidney and it was getting closer to my inferior vena cava. And so because it was so close to my inferior vena cava, they were afraid that that cancer had spread all over my body. So originally they said that it was just going to be scans and follow up, but then they decided, no, we should probably do oral chemo. So I was in the hospital for 3 days recovering from that surgery. I ended up having a complication after the surgery, which was my intestines basically were just didn't want to wake up. I was under anesthesia for so long, they just didn't want to wake up. They were sluggish. And so a day after I got released from the hospital, I had to go back to the hospital the next day because I couldn't hold anything down. And I was in the hospital again for another 3 days until I fully recovered and I was home again. So it took about, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks, I believe, afterwards, where we finally met with the surgeon for my post-op checkup. And that's when he confirmed it was stage 3. It hit me like a ton of bricks because leading up to my surgery, there was a lot going on. My husband had a really bad case of COVID, so I was busy taking care of him. And so my focus was on making sure that he was okay and making sure that he got better. So I was completely distracted before my surgery. So it wasn't until after surgery where like all the emotions came and hit me like a wall. Like, oh my gosh, I have cancer. My sister just finished treatment and now I have cancer too. And it was just, a flurry of emotions. And I just started Googling and just started searching on the internet. Like I went on and Instagram, Facebook, anything, anywhere, because this is a 1 in a million cancer. There's no research, there's nobody out there. And I was very lucky to find a man in Germany. I found a woman in Australia. I found a woman in England. I found all these people and we all just started talking. And once I found my community, I felt a little bit better. I felt a little more confident because the stats on ACC are not good. They're not good at all because there's such a small pool of research and there's not a lot of stats out there. And so everything is very grim. Everything is very bad. And so when you see somebody who has, lived for 10 years, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And when you connect with other people, it just felt so good to have other people who are in my shoes who understand because I get it. Every cancer is different, but there's so many people with, maybe breast cancer or colorectal cancer or something like that. And there's such a large community, but for us, there isn't. And there is no community there. So being able to reach out and find those people once I got the diagnosis was just a comfort. And we've all kept in touch and been talking all the time. The treatment plan is a chemo from the 1970s, and it is actually a derivative of DDT, which is a banned pesticide in the United States. So that is the only oral chemo treatment that we have available at the moment. We're hoping that someday we can have more research to get more chemo, but that's all we've got at the moment. So that's what they put me on. And what that does is it also shuts down the other good adrenal gland. So you have to take steroids to supplement so that you don't go into adrenal crisis and you can die from adrenal crisis from not having cortisol in your system. So that's kind of the regimen I got started on. I went in for a routine CT scan because I get scanned every 3 months. And on that routine CT scan, they noticed three nodules in my lung. The largest was 9 millimeters. And they sent me to a pulmonologist who said, you're healthy, you're young, we're going to take this out. So I met with him, and then I proceeded to meet with the surgeon and my lung surgeon. So I had the Da Vinci robot surgery to remove the three nodules from my lungs in August of 2023. And since the cancer had moved to another place in my body, that's when they diagnosed me as stage 4.
The only pain I have is a lot of pain in my shoulder and obviously in my chest and this wrist because they blew out a vein and it's swollen and it's really icky right now.
The plan is I stay on oral chemo because the oral chemo drug is the most effective drug in beating ACC or fighting ACC or keeping people in remission. So they wanted to keep me on that because there are IV chemo treatments, but they don't consider them as effective. So they kept me on the oral chemo and the steroids, and now there's really no end date as to when I can stop oral chemo. So as of right now, I've been on oral chemo twice a day, every day for 4 years. There's fatigue. I mean, there are days where I can't get out of bed. I physically cannot get out of bed. It takes every inch of myself to even use the restroom. Nausea. It just never ends with the nausea. It's always like all day, every day, you feel something. Certain smells can trigger it, and just just the no rhyme or reason to the nausea. And diarrhea is another one. It can also cause ovarian cysts. So now I have ovarian cysts that'll show up on my scans every now and again. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's just it's just a lot. I mean, you're basically putting toxic poison in your system. What do you expect is going to happen? Your body's going to try to get it out, and any way it can. So it's just not pleasant at all. The worst challenge is just kind of feeling alone. Somebody knows somebody with, their same cancer in their area. I don't. My closest person that I know that has this cancer is in Maryland, and so it's really hard to deal with that and to not have anybody know what you're going through because I look fine. I'm chubby and I have all my hair. I don't look like a quote unquote cancer patient. I look like myself just with a little extra weight on me. And so that's been really hard too, is that people think you're fine every day and you just come in and you're just struggling to just make it through the day. And people don't understand that. And, I've been on scooters in the store, the little, motorized scooters to get through the store because some days I'm just out of breath. I'm really tired. I can't do this, but I need to get things done. And so I'm on a scooter and I get looks sometimes, and so that's kind of difficult too. I feel like if, I sometimes I just want to like pull up my shirt and just say, look at this scar, look at this giant scar, look at this. I am sick. There is something wrong with me. I'm not just going around on a buggy just because I want to. I'm struggling right now. I'm having a really bad day, so I think that's a really tough part about it. And having parents that aren't close and having family that isn't close also doesn't help. But I know that my sister's a phone call away. And even though our cancers are completely different, um, she kind of, we kind of know we can kind of help each other out and we can talk each other down off that ledge. So that's been the only bright spot out of this whole thing. I had the thought the other night, I couldn't sleep. And so I was thinking, I was like, who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore because all of this started 12 years ago. And yes, absolutely, people can change over 12 years, 100%. But for 12 years, I had symptoms. For 12 years, I've had symptoms or been on chemo and all these pills. And it's like, who, who, who am I really? I don't even really know who I am. How do I, who was the girl or the woman that, you know, um, how did she work on and face challenges? How did she handle certain situations? How did she cope with different things that were going on in her life. Who is that woman? I don't know who that woman is. And so I feel like this is really crappy, but it's almost like an opportunity for me to start my life over again and find out who I really am as a person. My husband. My husband has gone above and beyond what any husband should ever have to do. He waited when I had my intestinal blockage. He sat in my car for 6 hours because they wouldn't let him in the ER until I got a hospital room. He sat in the car for 6 hours and waited for me. And then when we finally got in at midnight, he stayed there until 2 a.m., knowing he had to go to work the next morning. You know, and he's helped out so much for me. He's been to every single appointment. He's been to every single consult. Any scan that he can go to, he's been there. Like I said, ER, any appointment, any hospital stay, he's been there for me and he's picked up the slack. And I have a niece. I have one niece, and she's my life. And on the days when I'm struggling, I think of my husband and I think of my niece. And I think, I have a niece who needs to be spoiled rotten, who, needs to have somebody to tell her deepest, darkest secrets to. I want her to have that. And so when I just don't think I have anything in the tank, I look at my husband and I go, I've got to do this for him. If I can't do it for me today, I got to do it for him. And I have pictures of my niece all over my house and all over my cube at work. And I just look at her and go, yeah, I got to keep going for her. She's my reason and he's my reason why. I started my own Instagram page, Janelle with ACC. And if something happens and things go south, I want that to be my legacy. I want people to be able to go back to my page 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever years down the road and see what I went through and know that they're not alone. And I'm raw and I'm honest and sometimes really brutally honest on my page about what I'm going through and telling people, hey, it's not all sunshine, butterflies, and rainbows. It sucks. And I want that to be my legacy. Like if something were to happen, I want somebody to know that this is what I've been through. But also I want people to know that, if I can beat this thing and I can come out the other side, I want people to know I did it and so can you. Don't give up. Keep fighting. You can do this. Yes, it sucks, but our little itty bitty tiny community, we've got each other's backs and we can help each other out. And that's what we're here for. Keep fighting. Don't give up. Do not take no for an answer. I am stubborn, and I got that from my grandmother, and I am so proud I got that trait from her because I just kept asking, I want another endocrinologist. I want somebody new. I want to keep going. I want to keep finding out what this is. And just keep going and know that there are people out there. You got to look hard for them, but we're here. And the few that are in our community, we are loud and we are strong and we are fighters. And we are here to accept you no matter who you are. And we are always going to have your back.